Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be painting a pair of hummingbirds with some flowers. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And welcome back to our Saturday shows. I've got my husband, Mark, with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's in chat today. So if you've got questions while I'm painting, you can ask those and I'll try to answer. Let's get started. All right, so if you're new to our shows, welcome. We paint in real time, show you step by step how to do the painting, and we also kind of chat and talk about life. So don't leave me mean comments. Where it's just like you're sitting down with us and painting along. That's it. Got my Fredrix mixed media canvas board today that I'm going to be using, 9 by 12 inch size. Really, any size would work for this image. It would be really pretty on a larger canvas. And I've painted it with a coat of yellow oxide. So a transparent yellow oxide, kind of a light wash of color there, just to kind of get us started, and transferred my design on. And then I've covered it with some matte medium, so my design will stay put when I do other washes over the top of it for the background. All right, for my brushes, you can see I've got a pile of brushes here. Variety of brushes. I've got a few for the background, so I've got a couple of large Filberts that I'll probably use for the background. I'm not sure I'm going to need that one. That was left over from these two are also, okay. And then I've got my angle brushes here, and then a couple of liners for our hummingbirds. And I actually do need a liner brush too. Let me grab one real quick. So a liner brush for like the hummingbird beak and these long branches. So just some sort of a long brush, a small round for some of the smaller details, and then a bigger round for filling in some of the bigger areas. All right, so that's our main brush situation there. These are all Princeton brushes. The green handles are their Summit 6100 series, and the red ones are the VelvetTouch. And then I also grabbed a Deerfoot Stippler that I might use for the background. So I'm not really sure exactly how I'm going to do this background yet. I think I'm going to do light washes though, so we can see our hummingbird still. Are you okay?
Yeah, I got a fly attacking me.
Okay. And then I've got a 2-inch Aspen series Princeton brush for kind of fading out and smoothing out our background. You can also use like a sponge or even a paper towel if you don't have a fancy brush or sponge. So I have dampened that. You can see my damp spot there. Dampened that with a little bit of water. And so we're going to put some colors on here, and then we're going to use these larger brushes or the sponge to kind of soften them up and kind of make them look blurry and blend into the background. All right. I don't think I'm going to need that. Well, let's go use it for our colors. We got a ton of colors. I just put out all the colors because there's just a lot of colors going on in this, but you just use whatever you've got that's similar. You don't have to have all these colors. I have a lot of pre-mixed colors just to make it faster for me to work live. But here's Carbon Black, Burnt Umber, Burnt Sienna, Quinacridone Burnt Orange. This was that yellow oxide that I used in the background. It's transparent yellow oxide, but you can use regular yellow oxide. It's just opaque. Indian Yellow Hue, Cadmium Yellow Light, Green Gold, which we can mix that color if you don't have it. Phthalo Green Yellow Shade, Phthalo Turquoise, Cobalt Teal, Phthalo Blue Green Shade, Ultramarine Blue, Dioxazine Purple, looks like black, doesn't it? And then Quinacridone Magenta and Cadmium Red Light, Unbleached Titanium, Titanium White, and then this one is my gloss glazing liquid, and I put out a big little bit of it. All right, so I'm going to grab my largest Filbert here, and like I said, I haven't really done anything special to this except for I've put matte medium on it. That just sealed up the drawing. Clear, and it dries clear, so you can't really tell it's there. And then I'm going to use my spray bottle now, spray my canvas so that it is a little bit moist to work with, and wet down my brush. I didn't dunk it, I just kind of wet the tip and then brush off the extra on my cup there. Get some of the glazing medium, and then I'm going to start with the lighter colors and kind of gradually work to the darker. And we've got two colors going on here. We've got orange and green, and those are kind of almost complementary colors. They're really almost opposite on the color wheel. Let me see if I can pull out a color wheel here and I can show you what I'm talking about. So we're working with the green, red would be direct opposite, but the blue-green in the Hummingbirds is opposite from that red-orange that we're going to be using. So that's what gives it this really beautiful, that complementary color working side by side with this blue-green from the Hummingbirds and this red-gold in the background is red-orange is what gives it that vibrancy and what makes this painting pop. But so we're going to use kind of like yellow, green, and yellows, and then some of these colors here, this red, orange. So they're kind of close enough to complementary that we want to be careful not to put them on at the same time, because if they touch each other and mix, they will get muddy. So we'll end up with a brown, and we don't. There are some browns in here, but it's not our main color. So green gold, I'm going to start with that. And this Hummingbird has a darker background than this one. So this Hummingbird, you can see those wings are light, and they're going to play off that dark background. And this one, the wings look dark. They're probably almost exactly the same tone. Maybe this one's catching a little bit more light and is lighter, but because this background is lighter, the wings look darker in contrast. So we're just going to have to be aware of that. You're going to have to make this background a little bit lighter behind this Hummingbird and this one a little bit darker so that the lighter wings show up. All right, let's get going here. I'm talking a lot. I'm going to get some white, add that to the green gold. So if you don't have green gold, you can mix it with some, well, here, let's just try. We'll see if we can get a color close to it. Yellow, cadmium yellow light, a little bit of the Indian yellow hue or a kind of an orangey gold yellow, and then my phthalo green yellow shade. And I added way too much of that, so I want to get a little bit more of that gold color. And you can see we got a color. I still had that white in my brush, so it's kind of making it a little bit lighter, but you can see it's a similar tone. So if you don't have this green gold, that's fine. This one's a little bit darker. All right, so I'm going to use this. I'm going to get some water, get some glazing medium. And I don't want it too thick because I don't want it to cover up my Hummingbirds, but I just want to kind of put it on here over this yellow. It's going to be really pretty and just tint it just a little bit of green. And I'm just going to put it wherever I see that color. And then while that's still wet, I'm just going to either use my finger or paper towel or my sponge or something to just kind of dab off my corners so I don't have a rough, hard edge. See that? So just kind of blending out those corners. And let me get a little bit of my phthalo green and a little bit of burnt sienna. And that's going to make more of an olive toned green. I haven't cleaned out my brush, so I still have the same colors on here. And I'm going to put a little bit of that up here. And it comes down to this one and kind of peeks out there. And then again, just use this to kind of push that around. Don't do too many places with the color because it dries pretty quickly. So that water that we sprayed on there first will help give us a little bit extra time to dry or, to blend things out, but it dries fairly quickly. So get a little bit of burnt umber, adding that to it. And don't press too hard with this sponge, otherwise you're just going to wipe off what you just did. So we don't want that. Just wanting to kind of soften those edges up. And again, a lot of artists just use their finger and do like this. And that's fine too, except for on this, it's kind of soupy. You can tell, it's kind of like wet. And so it's kind of sticking to my finger and pushing it around. So the sponge kind of helps regulate the moisture too. All right, that's good.
Got a question real quick.
Okay.
Somebody would like to know, would we ever use like a metallic paint to get the hummingbird glittery, sparkly effect?
I use metallics sometimes for that. Yeah, I have in the past. In fact, I did a hummingbird painting with gouache and acrylic and showed the difference between those. And then we used a little bit of metallics in that one. So yes, we have done that before. We're not doing it in this one, but you could totally, you could just add it. Yeah, you can watch that video and show you, because there's a certain way to use metallics. You don't want to, you have to have a color underneath because they're transparent. So if you just try to put them on your canvas over the top of this, you'd be putting multiple coats of the metallics on, and they just wouldn't even like show up. You know, they're very transparent, and so you have to have a color underneath that's like the tone of the metallic that you're putting on top, so that it shows. The color will show through and the metallic will shine. But the metallics will alter the values. So it kind of flattens out all your values. So I use them. If you use them, I would just use them sparingly because they can be a little tricky, and they will, you know, if you've got a hummingbird that has a light and dark area right up close to each other and you put a metallic over it, just make everything look the same value, and you lose that darkness and the light interchange. So, all right, so there we go. And this, you know, this is looking a little bit messy. It's not as super blendy, so I could go over it with the brush if I wanted to, while this is still a little bit damp, and just kind of lightly fuzz it out this way too. So however you want to do it, it's fine. You could even use a mop brush. Some people use mop brushes. I don't tend to use them very often, but I probably should. They kind of make this kind of thing a little bit easier. All right, so that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and get some of the lighter green for over here while I still have my greens out. There's a little bit of a turquoisey tone, so I'm going to get just a slight bit of my turquoise with my, well, let's get this cobalt teal. That'll give us that turquoise color, and my white. And again, we've got it very, very liquidy, so whenever you're adding a lot of water to your acrylic paints, if you're using heavy body acrylics, they don't have a lot of binder in them. They have more pigment load, the professional acrylic quality acrylics. So you're going to need to watch how much water you add to them. And anytime you're adding a lot of water to thin them out, you're going to want to just add a little bit of glazing medium or some sort of acrylic medium that's transparent, that will help the paint stick to the canvas. Otherwise, you could lose your stickiness of the acrylics, whatever that's.
So
it won't bind.
Have we used green gold much before?
A few times, but it's not a color that I pull out very often. But it's in the hummingbird and in the background, and since it was so, showed up so frequently in here, I just decided to go ahead and grab it because I'd be having to mix this color multiple times otherwise. So
do you think it'd be worth that somebody going and buying it? I don't know what other uses.
If you do a lot of landscapes, I would say it's a really helpful color to have for, landscape painting. So if you're, doing a lot of that, it's one of those colors that's very, very specific, so it's kind of like you won't use it a ton, but when you do need it, it's really helpful to have it. Kind of, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's fairly easy to mix though. So, you could see how, but I didn't get it exactly that darkness either. So, you have to have nickel azo gold and a Hansa yellow light, or a, they used Hansa yellow light, I think, because it's more transparent than the cadmium yellow light. They're very similar in tone, but the green gold is transparent. So it's this color, a Hansa yellow light, and then instead of this color, it is nickel azo gold. Yeah. So you can see it's more on the transparent side, and it's nickel azo yellow, phthalo green yellow shade, and Hansa yellow light. So it tells you right on the bottle
Can
what.
you show the paint splotch on the front? Yeah, just so they can see.
So you can see that the black through it, how transparent it is. I got paint on mine. I have all my paint bottles.
But if they were to do like a camouflage pattern on like tanks and stuff like that, it would be a handy bottle to have.
Hadn't thought of that, but yes.
Yeah, if they're doing a lot of tank camo work.
Is that a problem you see very often, hon? Like,
maybe. I mean, somebody might have that problem. I hope.
All right. So we've got that on there. I really kind of need to let that dry almost completely here. We're just going to have to
say hi to everybody.
Be careful. Yeah, say hi. Hope you guys are enjoying your Saturday, and thanks for hanging out with us. I'm glad to be back. We've got a lot of really fun paintings coming up for the fall. I've already posted a lot of my October schedule, even before I've announced it on social media or anything. I just kind of got in there yesterday and was feeling very motivated to get my schedule out there. So I posted some really fun stuff. Painting a bear, painting a squirrel coming up, painting a bee, lots of trees. Lots and lots of trees. Yeah, it's this time of year. The trees are the star, aren't they? Here in the U.S., at least, it's trees are going to start changing colors. They haven't quite yet, but I like to be just slightly ahead of the schedule so that you can paint it in time to actually use it when you want it, in your home. All right, so I think I'm going to switch to this brush. This will give me a little bit more control, and it'll also give me that fuzzy look that I'm looking for. It is the 3/8 inch Deerfoot Stippler. So I'm going to just kind of clean out my brushes over here. I cleaned out my sponge a little bit. I'm just going to make sure that I'm wasting time here just letting this dry. So you're like, why is she?
We can talk about the job.
Yeah, I'll show what we did on Patreon. Can you dry that real quick for me? I think it needs to be all the way dry. It's taking its sweet time there. I'll show you what we're working on. On Patreon, this is our $10 level. It looks weird. Don't judge. It's in the ugly stage still. We're gonna do a lot of shading in the eyes of the kitty cat and add all these little open splotches here, our leaves. So we're gonna have leaves all the way through here coming in front of the kitty cat. So we worked on a lot of these background leaves. Still gonna do some more work on that and then finish up the fur. So it's a good lesson in fur. Using a couple different kind of brushes, and we got lots of work left to do on the face and the eyes. So Patreon is it's another website where you can go and kind of get exclusive videos if you didn't get enough of us on YouTube. Our YouTube channel has over 500 videos, but the Patreon stuff tends to be things that take a lot longer. So these videos usually take 8 to 10 hours, depending on what we're working on. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but the $10 level ones. Then we do a bonus video, which we'll be doing tomorrow. That is, let me see if I can find Mark's not here. Let me see if I can sneak in this photo real quick of our bonus image. There it is, the sunflowers. So we'll be working on that tomorrow for our $5 level, and that video is just like a once a month thing, and we just paint until we finish it. So usually those are about 4 or 5 hours videos, and then like I said, the ones that I'm doing here for the $10 level, we do about an hour and a half to 2 hours every Thursday until we finish it all through the month. So anyhow, it's a lot of fun. All right, so while Mark is doing that, let's go ahead and mix up our color. I think by the time we get it mixed up and everything ready to go, he'll be back, hopefully. I'm going to spray this down and get just a little bit of this Cadmium Red Light and my Quinacridone Burnt Orange. Those two will make a really bright color, but we're going against this yellow. So we got to kind of take into account that yellow is going to change our color a little bit. It'll make it more orange. So we can go a little bit more red on this and see what happens, because we're wanting to do this transparently. And so the background will influence this color quite a bit. All right, so that looks good. It's a little bit more vibrant than what's in our picture, but I think when we get it on here, yeah, see how that yellow kind of tones it down? So I'm just going to use this brush so I added my glazing liquid. I have that blended out and ready to go. It's thin. So it's going to just go on here nice and transparent. Really pretty. Just a blush of color. And I'm going to go over the top of my green in some places, and that's going to merge. And that's why we needed this dry, because I didn't want to try to do this while it was wet. It was just not going to work. I'm going to get maybe a little bit of this unbleached titanium and do a few of these areas with just a slighter, lighter tone. The unbleached titanium is opaque, so it'll help kind of cover over that yellow a little bit and also create a lighter tone. Okay, so I'm not really worried about what's going on in the wing here. I'll go ahead and kind of blend that out because it looks kind of funky, that color, but this is the area that will show, and so this is the area that I'm kind of concerned about. I'm going to go ahead and get some of that light yellow, and while that's wet, I'm just going to kind of blend those two together. Okay, so the thing that you have to watch out for is right now this red is still a little bit damp, but it's starting to dry. And as soon as it does decide to okay, I'm gonna dry, it starts to get solid. It starts to stick, the molecules start to stick to one another. I'm gonna get a little bit of burnt umber and burnt sienna here. And I'm gonna go a little bit darker right here. But once they start to stick to each other and you touch them with a brush or anything, they'll stick to you. They'll stick to your brush, and they will just pop right off your canvas. And then you could try to paint over it, but it won't. It's kind of like that whole area has to dry, and it just won't lay down color for you until it's completely dry. So just kind of know that you just have to work in small sections. And then right now this is starting to dry, so I can't touch this yet. I have to move into another area, work over here, and then I can come back to it later once it's dry and lay more color over the top. It dries way faster than oil paints, but oil paints, these would still be wet, and I could play with them and I wouldn't have to worry about them being dry. But I wouldn't be able to do the layering that I'm doing right now because the yellow and everything underneath here would still be wet. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's a lot easier to blend two colors into each other with oil paints, but they do take a lot longer to dry. So you're not having the layers that you can do in acrylics in a short amount of time. You can do layers with oils, but you have to wait for them to dry in between, and it can take several days, sometimes weeks, depending on how thick your paint is. So I get questions a lot, about can I do this in oils? And I'm like, yeah, you can, but it'll be different. The techniques are a little bit different. Okay, so isn't that pretty? I think this is going to work out just fine.
And it looks like you're not really pushing down on the brush.
Not. And I don't have a lot of paint in my brush either. So I'm just barely kind of picking up a little bit of this. You can see you can just barely even see it on my brush. It's just barely there. I don't need a lot. It's going to do the work. And all I need to do is just I'm doing little circular motions here to get it to go on and fluff out these edges. So what I do, I didn't mention this. start in the area where you want it darkest. So put that color down where you want it darkest. And if you have too much paint on your brush and you're like, it's just like if I got out to here and it wasn't fuzzing out or fading out, then I could wipe it off on a paper towel really quickly and then come back here or put it in another area. But I tend to say don't do that because then this area could dry before you got back to it to blend it out. So put that color darkest where you want it dark. And then as soon as that color is mostly off your brush, then go about, and now I'm really scrubbing, just try to get the last little dregs of color off onto my canvas. There we go. Again, darkest area first. And once that's mostly gone, mostly down on the canvas, then I can kind of work the edges and blend it out. And these are all different kind of shapes, kind of meeting up. And you may have to do this 2 or 3 times to get it just right, you know. Again, like this, I touched that little area right there. You can see it right there. That little bit lifted off. And so now instead of having a nice dark area there, I have like a little bit of a light area in the middle there because it lifted and that was starting to dry. It dried really fast. It dries that fast because we're putting this on super thin. So these colors are really transparent and really fine, very thin. And so they're going to dry like that. And the glazing medium that I use, this gloss glazing medium from Golden, I'll show it to you, called Gloss Glazing Liquid. It has a slow dry extender in it. You can use as much as you want. So it's not like a regular extender where you can only use like 30% to your acrylic paints or whatever. You know, a lot of these extenders have like only a certain percentage you can use. And then it makes your paints like actually not stick at all. It kind of makes them like weird and glossy. So this is nice because I can use as much of this as I want to, and I don't have to worry about like, you know, using too much. It works really great for this. So I use it a lot. I just added a little bit more like burnt umber color and burnt sienna color to this red so that I had like a little bit more brownish tone down here. And I'm going to wipe that off because I can tell over here I'm getting a lot of brush strokes and things that I don't want. So wipe all of that out and then go back in and I can pick up the extra paint and then work around the outside. And do this very quickly, just in small sections. Like I said, you can do this as many times as you need to, just as many layers as you want to. Just make sure that you dry it completely in between your layers and then continue layering. So, all right, gonna get a little bit of the, there we go. This is mostly just burnt orange down here. But I don't want to cover up all my pretty green there either. So, and I've got another one of these brushes over here. So I'm going to use this for my green and go back over some of these green areas while this color is still wet. So I'm grabbing that. And I sprayed this down so that it didn't dry on me all the way. And I'm going to grab that, give it a good another coat. Okay, so you can see right there where it's kind of doing that weird halo thing. It's not like blending. That means that was starting to dry. So I just need to be careful. Probably need to just let this red dry. Use my finger to try to fix that. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I got kind of a weird halo thing right there. Didn't want that to happen. So I waited too long for my green to do the green. And my background was already starting to dry. But I can go over here now. This is all dry. I can work on this area. I'm going to get a little bit of the turquoise with this white mixture that I had. Just add a little bit of that back in here. Over the top. And we're almost done with this. We're not going to do a ton with this. It's not... It's all kind of blendy and fuzzy background here. Get some of this. I just mostly want to kind of go over the areas that look a little bit rough, like that look a little beaten up, you know. Getting some of that brighter green. And again, I got to be careful right here because that was starting to dry. Going over here. And go make sure I go behind and my flower too, so I don't have a weird open area right there around my flower. So I'm going to go ahead and deliberately mix my green with my reddish color that I had here. So I'm mixing them both together so I get kind of a gray brown. Use that kind of some in the middle. Anytime you're meeting up two colors that are different like this, you can kind of mix a little bit of those two colors together and then use that for the area where they meet up and they'll blend out better. It'll look like it's blended. All right, get a little bit more of that darker Quinacridone burnt orange, and when I'm picking this up, I'm not picking up a lot of color because I don't want it to. It's sort of dry. Oh, I missed this part in here. There's a little red area right in front of him right here. So let's go ahead and put that in. Wipe that out, and then just go around the edges. I think the main thing when people have trouble with this is that they use too much paint and they blend in the same area too long. So if it doesn't look great, don't worry about it. You can always go back over it, you know, as many times as you want to. So you don't have to get it right the first try. You can come back to it. And I'm getting some of that quinacridone or some cadmium yellow light here. I'm going to do a little bit brighter right here. You can see I'm just bumping up the color saturation in that area. Sounds like Spencer's here. My son. Coming home. He's living on campus this semester. It's been hard on Mom. I cried the other day. I'm not gonna lie. Empty nesting is no joke. I get it now. You look forward to it when they're about 3. You're like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to end? And then somewhat when they're teenagers too, occasionally. And then they suddenly become like really fun to be around, and then they leave. And then they leave. They're, you know, not that they weren't fun to be around before, but you know what I mean, like friendly, like friends, you know, they're like adult. Yeah, I don't know. Anyhow, all right, going back to this.
Well, what about your husband?
My husband, he's all right too.
Is he okay to be around?
I know, he's all right. He goes off to work though and leaves me, so.
This is true.
Hopefully we can remedy that. We're trying to pay down our debt so Mark can quit and help me full time. I've got lots of plans for him. I'm going to put him to work. Yep. I'll be the boss now. It's going to be really fun. It's like, oh gosh.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I work from 5 a.m. to noon.
All right, that's all right. You get the morning shift. I'll take the afternoon, evening. It's kind of how we always did our parenting anyways.
True.
All right, so getting some brownish. I'm just kind of tweaking the colors now. Just using the same colors, just in different, you know, places here. Just kind of trying to get this really pretty blended thing going on here. I think this is dry enough now. I can go back in with some of this quinacridone burnt orange, just right in the middle there. Wipe it off and blend out around the edges.
So while this is, you know, obviously you're doing it specifically for this painting and subject. It's a really great technique for doing any kind of a bokeh look.
Oh, absolutely.
If you want to do that blurry background for other things you want to paint.
Yep, you could use any colors you wanted. It, you know, you just kind of, the main thing is you just kind of have to know how your colors are going to react to one another. Colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So, you know, these three colors, these three colors, you know, any of these colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel, and that's how I put them out on my palette too. So I know those are going to blend fine. You won't have any issues with them turning muddy or weird, you know, doing weird things. It's when you have colors that are slightly opposite on the color wheel or start to get into, you know, other color families. So this orange is closer to the red family than it is the green, and the green is the opposite from the red on the color wheel. You know that those are going to kind of create a muddier color to be more brownish. It's still a pretty color and it works fine for this. And we, you know, it is in our photograph because these colors are blending optically by their blurriness. You know, they're obviously not blurred in, you know, real life. They're just looking this way because of the photograph, the way it was taken. And it's kind of like pointillism, or one of those things where you've got two things right up next to each other, and because they're so close to each other, they create another color totally. You know, they're pixelating, you know, creating different colors. So that's what's happening here. We're just trying to replicate it. And I got a weird thing right there. I'm going to try to... You can kind of fix those little open areas if you kind of rub off too much paint by tapping a little bit like thicker paint in there, but probably the best solution is just let it dry. Okay, I'm loving that. I think I'm going to leave it. Looks really pretty. I think before I do anything else too, I'm going to splatter because I like splatters, and that's just... You can leave this part out if you don't want to, but I just want a few little splatters. So I'm just going to use up these colors that I still have left in my palette. I'm going to use up this light yellow. It's already thinned out, so it's going to splatter really nicely for me. And this also kind of has that effect of like sunlight speckling through. I don't know. I think it kind of adds to these kind of backgrounds. And again, you can leave this out if you don't like it. All right, there we go. So we got this really pretty splattered light speckling going on in our dark areas mostly. Okay, real pretty. Let's paint some hummingbirds. I'm going to clean these out. And I'm just going to use this. This is still damp, so I'm just going to wipe this all off while it's wet. Clean off my area, so I've got a clean spot to mix on my palette. This is a glass palette. All the materials that I'm using are in my Amazon shop. So if you visit that, down in the description, there's a link to my Amazon shop, and I have an acrylic painting supplies for beginners, and then regular like art supplies that's got basically everything I ever use. So, but the acrylic painting, the basics beginner set has got kind of just the main stuff that you might want if you're first starting out with acrylics. Alrighty, put this back. So let me see. I think I'm gonna go ahead and use actually, let's go ahead and do our flowers because those will go on nicely for us. I'm gonna use my liner brush. I might actually get a slightly bigger.
She is calling it audible.
Okay, I'm going to get my script liner. It's going to be just a little bit fatter. Like, so if you flatten those out, see how that script liner is just slightly bigger. And it's also longer, it'll hold more paint. So I'm going to go ahead and go with that. That's a number 2 script liner from the VelvetTouch. And we're going to get some yellow. Actually going to mix this color with my palette knife because it's going to be easier to do that. 'Cause God, that color is just gummy, isn't it? I'm going to use the turquoise instead. It makes a really pretty green. Turquoise phthalo has the phthalo green in it, so it's going to make just basically the same color that you would get using phthalo green anyways. Ooh, that's not a good noise. It's like nails on a chalkboard. Okay, so got that color. Now this color alone is going to be really like too much. It's like a lime green here, and it's not really what we're seeing in our photograph. Because our photograph's a little bit more natural colored. So I'm going to get this gold, and it's going to react with that yellow. I got the yellow oxide, which is kind of a brownish yellow, and then the yellow Indian yellow hue, and those are going to see how that neutralize that color now. It's still a bright color, but it's a little bit more natural. It's a little bit muted, not as bubblegum, you know, like circus colors. Ginger Cook calls them circus colors, like out of the box crayon colors, which do show up occasionally in nature. Thus our hummingbird, you know, is got that super vibrant colors here and there. Flowers often have like super vibrant colors, but a lot of times they're just slightly toned down. So this is going to be really pretty. All right, so I'm going to grab just a little bit of this, take it off here, and get some more of my phthalo turquoise and a little bit of burnt sienna. That will also do, it'll kind of mute that color. Still have that yellow in here from the color we mixed over here, the highlight version. All right, so that'll work. So we've got a shadow color and a highlight color. Now I'm just going to scrape that up and have a nice little spot for both of those colors to live. And while this is wet, I'm just going to scoop that off. That's my highlight color right there. And then what I need to do is add water. So I'm just going to spray it. That'll help thin it out for me. Let me spray it again and keep me from having to dunk and come back and forth. Okay, so you need this to be like a milk cream consistency. So you just have to keep adding water. You can add a little bit of glazing medium too, again, to make it sure it sticks. But there we go. So you should be able to see through just slightly, but the thick areas should still, you know, have paint. So it's not completely transparent. That's about what you want right there. And then it should just flow right off your brush with no pressure at all. That's how you know you've loaded your liner brush right. All right, so I'm going to get a little bit of this darker color too. I'm going to add some water to it. So I have both the lighter and the darker color. And I'm just going to do a double loading trick. So I'm going to get my darker color on there, and I'm just going to run it through the thickest part of this lighter color. So now I have both colors on here, and I'm going to turn it so my lighter color is towards this side, which is my light side. I don't know why I'm holding this in one hand. Like, I didn't clean it off. All right, there we go. Again, so turn it so that the light part is over here, and I'm going to start to line out my thing. And these are like a series of little loops, so they kind of go like that. So it actually makes it fairly easy to do this because you don't have to get it just so on the first try. Whoop. You can just do a little short section. They get a little bit thicker as they come down. So I'm not seeing a whole lot of my highlight, so I'm going to get a little bit of white here. Try to get a little bit more highlight going. That'll just save me from having to do it later. That's a little bit better. Still not. There, that's better. And then this kind of just does one along. Here we go. Okay. And then the green kind of comes up and butts up into this flower. So you can kind of just square off the end of that right there. There's a little flower nubbin right there. Really good. Definitely think I need more light highlight on here. So I'm going to get a little bit of yellow and white. Come back through and just add a little highlight on the side. There we go. Okay, let's do this one. And this little guy's standing on it, holding on to it. So it's, yeah. If these were our hummingbirds, they would be actually fighting. They wouldn't be sitting here looking at each other this way, sharing nicely. They don't do this at our house.
No.
They don't politely sit there and watch each other.
Yeah, apparently the breed that is prevalent here in Arkansas.
Super aggressive.
Yeah. You can have 5 hummingbirds and 7 feeders, and they will be chasing each other all over.
Right.
It's just like, can we not share?
There's plenty to go around, guys. And they'll like guard it. They just sit there and just like guard their little territory. I mean, their little feeder. It's like, enough for you. No. And they'll come by, zip off, chasing each other. One of them was like, I'm using this light yellow white color here just to highlight these. One of them was checking out had a hummingbird moth that looks like a hummingbird, only much, much smaller. You know, it's kind of a big moth size. Yeah, moth. And he flew right up to it and was like, what are you? And then he flew away. He's like, okay, you're not. Alrighty, that looks good.
Okay, so at the beginning of the show, you went over how you prep the canvas. Could you just quickly?
I painted the yellow oxide,
Okay.
then transferred on my design,
Okay.
and then I used matte medium. Matte medium because it's got a little bit of a grit to it. You know, it'll be as opposed to gloss medium. Gloss medium would be a little slicker to paint over. So matte medium, and that seals in the design so that I can paint over it like I did.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so...
You want any coffee while I step out? No? Okay, I'll be right back.
You're going to make coffee?
Well, it's already made.
Oh, go get some. Okay, got it. Check it. All right, so I'm going to use my cadmium yellow light, add a little bit of the gold yellow, Indian yellow hue. I'm going to get a little bit more of that. Try to get the yellow that does not have. I'm going to put out some fresh yellow just over here because I'm going to need quite a bit of it for my flowers. There we go. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of white to it over here. So I have kind of just a slightly pale version. And I've added a little bit of water to it, but I can keep this one fairly thick. I'm just going to do like this. And I'm going to turn my palette over so that I can get kind of a nice rounded tip on that using a round brush like this. If I kind of press down on it, it spreads those bristles out for me. It's almost like having a filbert. And then I can use it to fill in these petals really easily. It's got that rounded tip that I need. And I'm going to do these all yellow, even though some of them are reddish, because I'm gonna have this yellow underneath, and that'll give us a base for our red gold to go over the top. Really pretty, and this is good. I wasn't sure, if my background was dark enough, but it looks just fine. We can see the nice bright yellow right over the top, no problem.
Like the artist. Fine.
Be quiet.
What? Oh, was my mic on? I'm so sorry. Thought my mic was off there.
People are like, leave me comments all the time. Like, stop flirting.
Oh, never.
Been married how many years?
Oh, well, I've only known you 36, so
right.
I haven't not done flirting yet.
That's good. All right. There we go. And as I paint this on, I'm kind of trying to also kind of smooth out the ridges, but you could leave that texture in if you like it. So it's just up to you whether you want it kind of more flattened out, smooth, or if you want it textured. I'm going to get this kind of more golden version here for that one. I'm going to use this more yellow gold version for these. And again, like I said, these are going to be more red overall, but I want this color underneath. It'll make my red more vibrant, and it'll peek through here and there when I do it, so it'll be nice. And just make sure I'm covering up that drawing. Another way of doing these is to kind of come out and then just kind of press flat. You can see how it kind of bulbs out, so press flat and it'll round out that tip also. Right. And I took out the one that was over here, but I thought I would do another flower down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of fudge it from this one and just do a flower down here. Similar to this one up here. Maybe put a flower petal coming down so that it's a little bit different. It doesn't look too matchy-matchy. There we go. I'm making decent time on this. Let's go ahead and do kind of a bulb out of this one. I know it'd probably be open already because it's down lower, but it's all right. We're just going to pretend. Same thing here. I just want more color a little bit farther down. So.
So when people sign up at Patreon, like at the $5 and $10 levels, they get an email, right?
Uh-huh.
A welcome email, and they should be able to get links and stuff like that to the videos.
It explains kind of where to find stuff.
Okay.
But the main Patreon page has, it's like a blog style.
Right.
And it's got posts, and I post everything on there. So all the videos from 2017 to present have all kinds of resources and everything, and it's all posted on Patreon for people. So you just have to kind of search for it. If you know the title of the video, it's better. But if you just want to kind of look and see what is available, you can go to my website, and my website has a page that's for exclusive videos and shows all the exclusive videos. Okay, so I've very loosely, you can see I've got just streaks of that red through this. I don't want it fully blended. I just want like streaks of the red through, and I'm going to start with that and go over and kind of lift up through and add some little bits of this red here and there, and that red kind of comes up there, comes down. Using very light touches here, just kind of dry brushing almost over the top. It's kind of on this side of this petal. Some streaks, and then a few little streaks in the middle there. Okay, now this one is a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of the magenta. It's a little bit brighter red. Seeing kind of different bits of the yellow peeking through. That covered up a lot of that. I think I need a smaller brush. This one's the 2/0 round. I might need the 1 round actually. Let me get the 1, which is kind of in between. There we go. Got the 1. Okay, get a fresh one because that one's not looking too hot. Alright, so this is just 1 down from what I was using, I think. This one was the 2, yeah. So, and it's totally normal for your paint brushes when you first use them to dye. So this one dyed yellow because that was the first one to use. This one's going to dye red because I'm going to use the red. So when I get it cleaned, it's going to be red. And that's totally fine. It's just the way they do. All right, so I'm just kind of running it through there to kind of create these streaky lines here. There we go. Let me get this yellow, just running my yellow back over, softening up some of these areas here. And then let's get some of this brighter red for this area right here. Mix up a little bit both of those to just get kind of a softer medium color. Hi, Fitzy. Puppy's in the studio. What you doing? Hi. Go play with Spencer. Getting some yellow. Alright, so I'm just making small kind of adjustments here, just kind of streaking the colors through, creating this really pretty. And this one is kind of folded down over right there. There we go. They're pretty. Let me spread this because it's starting to get a little sticky. It'll just help me have a little bit more working time.
Do we know what kind of flowers those are?
I don't know.
I would say yellow or orange.
Good thinking.
Thinking.
I do not know. No. They look like jasmine almost, but I don't think jasmine grow this way. So more of a tall flower.
Is jasmine on your mind?
Doesn't even make sense. It's not the right saying.
Isn't that what the song says?
Georgia on your mind.
Blowing like jasmine in my mind.
Oh, okay. I was the wrong song.
Man, you're not even...
I was not with you at all there.
No. Georgia.
Like, what are you talking about?
Okay, flower bingo has started. So let's see. We have jasmine, but we're not sure if that's right. We have croxomia. We have freesias.
Freesias?
Yeah.
Freesias?
Yeah.
They look like freesias, yeah.
I'll just go wild here. I'll say tulips.
Gonna go rogue.
Yeah.
There's got to be somebody who has these that knows exactly what they are. It's the weeding through the wrong answers that's the problem.
We have pretty.
I like that. Don't need to know, just know that they're pretty. Yep, check. Pretty. So just very, subtle, going over very lightly and just kind of touching it down and lifting almost immediately. In some places this yellow is still a little bit wet, but it's dried fairly quickly, so it's good. So just setting it down and kind of dragging it. And the key to this kind of technique is to I'm not pulling the brush down all the way. I'm just using it like a the part where I'm holding like a pivot point. So it's doing like this. So I'm flicking it in the direction instead of pulling it all the way. And then that way it breaks up the end here. Breaks up and you get that kind of broken line that fades it out into the other color. Get a little bit darker color under here. And you just need to make sure you can see it against the background. So I can tell already my background over here is not dark enough because I can't see this color. So what I'm going to do is just brighten up this, darken it up right here so that I can see it right there. See, now I can see that petal. I can see these ones okay. These ones are in the dark. So I'm not gonna use as much of the red over here. I'm going to just leave them a little bit more bright yellow. And in fact, I see a little bit of like highlights of white even on them. So I'm going to get some white and try to put some highlights.
Here's sunflower,
Oh.
Spider-Man, into the Spider-Verse.
Alexa.
Alone and sway with
Stop. Oh, she's trying to play the song Sunflower for us. How? What did I say? That I did not say her name. No, I didn't.
She's sitting there wanting to be
She's just waiting. She's like, oh, I think she called me. She's like, oh yes, finally. I know this. She's like the kid in the class, waiting to raise her hand. Oh. Me. The teacher's like,
Really?
Anybody but Brian. Anybody know this? Anybody but Lexi. She could probably tell us what flower it is.
So, I mean, right now it looks like Crocosmia.
Okay.
Might be the leading candidate just by looking at pictures on the interwebs. But it's, yeah, it could be.
Let me see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's other pictures
Yeah.
too.
Looks very similar. Add a little bit of the green to this color and just using that to shadow the bottom side. I used white on all of these to kind of highlight them. And then just using the darker green. I didn't come out far enough on this. That's what I get for doing my own version. Is it raining?
It had, yeah.
I thought I heard rain.
Mm-hmm.
I do hear rain.
Tut tut.
Looks like rain.
Yes, it is raining again, looks, I guess.
All right. Okay, so this one we're going to have to make up. So I'm going to look at my other flowers to kind of see where the highlights were on those and kind of just try to figure out which petals are in front and which ones are behind. I'm going to do a little bit more pointy. I'm just going back over it with yellow now. There we go.
Can
Go ahead and do a little bit brighter orangey red here. What?
somebody would like a little more help or explanation on how to double load the brush? Because
Okay.
they're not having success in doing it.
Okay. Yes, hold on.
Please hold. Your question is very important to us.
Yes, I will do that here. Just give me a second. Let me finish these. I'm going to do a bud over here too. Why not? Let's do a big one over here too. These are just spent on this one, but we can just pretend like they're not. Give them a little bit more color right here.
It's our world. We'll do what we want.
That's right. We make it up as we go. We can do what we want. Bob Ross told me that. I knew. He knows everything. But all right. There's a few of them down here too. So there's one there. I already did that one. So this one here. And I think that was the last one. Pretty. I like it. All right, I'm going to get a little bit of purple and mix that with what's on my brush here, the yellow. I'm just going to kind of tone it down. Use that a little bit on this one. These have a little bit of purple. This one's got a bit of that. Okay. Double loading. You can start with the dry brush if you're having trouble. It may be easier to start with the dry brush or, clean brush and just run it through. Run it through the thickest part of the paint, turn it over, and run it through the opposite side. So you have both colors on there at one time. I don't know if you can see that. It's not focusing. Focus. There we go. These colors are pretty similar, so it's kind of harder to see. But then when you
You can-
do it on here, you can
It's too zoomed in. on
too
the
zoomed
palette.
in.
No, too zoomed out on the palette. Can't really.
So there, I've got white and green, so you can see what I'm talking about. And then when you do it, you lay it down so that you've got the lighter color where you want the lighter and the darker where you want the darker. And then it just automatically kind of does the highlight for you, so you don't have to come back in and do it again later. Let me do it on here.
So you just drag the brush through one color, then rotate it 180 degrees and drag it through the other.
Yep.
That just comes with practice. So if this is your first time doing it, don't be discouraged that it's not happening for you.
Yeah, it
Angela's
takes
doing
practice.
it for about 30 years, so she kind of just.
Right. Right. Yes, exactly.
Sometimes she does it in her sleep. Well, no, not really. But she could if she had to.
I could try. I could try. All right. Go. I'll leave that for now. We might mess with it some more later, but I'll let it dry. Let's work on our hummingbirds here, so you can see what I was talking about with that one turning red and the other one turning yellow. Totally normal. All right, so this hummingbird's tail has got blue, purple, burnt umber. It's kind of a bluish. I'm going to get a little bit more blue. A little bluish purple. Closer. More blue. There we go. Okay, and I want it dark, so I haven't added any white. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to do that first. I'm going to put this on in stripes like I'm seeing on the tail. And that way, when I go to put my highlights on, I can see where to do those. If I'm getting streaks, I'm just going to pull through. These colors are transparent, so even though they're dark, they have some transparency. The burnt umber isn't, but the other two are. And we're not using enough of the burnt umber to make them not fully transparent, so just going to pull any streaks that I see out towards in the direction of that tail's growing, the feather is growing long ways. And that way it'll look like we meant to do that if we see any streaks. Okay. Go. And this one's got a little bit more brownish on the underside, so we get a little bit of brown added to that. Kind of a V shape here. And I will have the traceable for you on my social media later on today. On not social media, on Patreon. Getting some unbleached titanium. I'm using that color for the highlight here on top.
Maybe after dinner.
Yeah, depends on how late we go. Okay. And then I'm going to use this color in the wings too. So this unbleached titanium with this blue, purple, brown color, burnt umber, with a little bit of blue in it. Blue and purple. going to be my wing color. And these wings are, in our photograph, are blurry, so I'm not going to try to define them more than they are in a photograph. We're just going to kind of put them on sort of blurry like and hope for the best. They may not look, you know, completely. I'm going to get some unbleached titanium here. Can I use that with it? Yeah, they're blurry. I'm going to get some yellow. I'm seeing a little bit of yellow too. I'm going to get this yellow oxide. The main thing is just trying to kind of get a little bit of that white color in between my feathers, just so that I have a dark and light version of it. And I need to flip it so that I'm going right up to that dark ridge right there. Okay. Comes to a point, sort of. Not sort of, it does come to a point. Like that. Getting that burnt umber. Using it on this end. Like that. Just running it through this wet paint, and it's kind of catching, darkening it up. And then nice and dark under here. Just using straight burned umber here. I think I made that too big. Let me see if I can get that off. This one right here, I think it's supposed to curve down a little bit faster. No? Yeah, it does. Yeah, I brought it out too far. Okay, let's try that again. Right there. I'm going to have to let that dry. Okay, let's use this lighter color here on this wing. And this one's going to turn, so we're not seeing much of the wing. It's going to turn it side. I'm going to get some green. I'm going to get that turquoise color and add it to that burnt umber. So I'm going to transition from the burnt umber to green right here. I'm just going to dab it over that color, create some this green right there. Do the same thing here. I'm going to get a little bit of this lighter color that's got the unbleached titanium with it. Add it to this one. This one's not quite as dark. Okay, and then I'm just going to tap out this edge just to fuzz it out so I don't have a hard edge there to have to paint up to. Kind of comes in like a V shape right there. Then I'm seeing this dark green underneath his chin. If you paint over the flower, that's fine. You can paint it over again. You can paint it in again later if you need to. All right, let's do this guy's wing here. So this guy's got this dark green right here. Burnt umber and turquoise. Or phthalo green, whichever. Doesn't. Just a dark brownish green. Get some more burnt umber. And the back of his head's coming down here, this brown. And just leaving a slight green in here. Just give it a little bit of color. Get a little bit more of the burnt umber. Maybe a little bit of purple, just like our tail. Do it really dark right there. And I'm putting this on. You can see I'm stippling it on with small little brush strokes so that it goes on in the direction that I'm seeing the feathers, and that'll kind of give us a head start for when we do our highlights later, our upper layers. Ooh, this area is going to be a lot lighter when we get it done, but we'll just go ahead and put it in dark now, and then we'll have it to contrast later when we do our highlights. That's the thing with acrylics. You really need to look at the undercolors and do those first, and then do your highlights very last, and that's what's going to give them like a lot of pop. And you'll get that good contrast because you'll have these nice, rich, darker colors underneath your highlights. If you just go straight to the highlights, you won't have these kind of undertones that we're seeing. And your painting will be a little bit more flat. Getting some, let's get some yellow gold, and this is that Indian yellow and the yellow oxide. And I still have a little bit of that turquoise in my brush, so it's kind of creating a color similar to the green gold, a little bit darker, a bit more brown. I had that burnt umber. Let me get a little bit of the burnt sienna in here. There we go. These butterflies are like green and blue, but there's a lot of browns and things in them too.
Hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds. What did I say? Butterflies, sorry. I'm in my art brain right now. I can't be responsible for what I say.
That's okay. I try to listen sometimes.
Words are hard in the art brain. They don't always come out right. Okay. I'm going to use a little bit of this color. Get some golden color over here. Ooh, this is coming out green. Oh well. There we go. This is going to be a lot lighter when I get it done with it, but I'm just kind of putting in colors now. Just to lay the base. Spray everything really well. Get some burnt umber and yellow oxide here. I think it picked up a little bit of the quinacridone burnt orange too. It's totally fine. Okay. And then I'm getting that unbleached titanium. I'm going to flip this over, just make it easier to paint these long brush strokes here. And then this back side here, you get a little bit of that blue purple. And do that whole wing with that light blue purple mixture. Doesn't show up. You need to bump up the contrast on the edge so that it shows up. So you can add a little bit of dark to it if you need to, or you can go in one direction or another, a little bit more light, a little more dark, doesn't really matter as long as you can see it against that background. So my background, I didn't get it dark enough. I said I needed it dark, and they didn't get quite dark enough. So I'm going to get a little bit of white and just lighten it up a little bit and do a little bit more light. See, now you'll be able to see it. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this one. So I'm going to go all the way, this whole front top part is lighter highlighted. There's a little bit of this green gold color coming out onto the wings right here. See the top of the wing, and then you're seeing the shoulder kind of coming down. Darker green here. Get a little bit of that color from the tail, that purple right there. Okay, getting that darker brown. I'm going to put in a few under feathers here. There's a little bit of highlight on them, but I'll save the highlights for later. I think getting some kind of medium tone, that wing color, put it in there. So this is that unbleached titanium with burnt umber. A little bit of maybe a little bit of white. I'm doing it kind of like I did the flowers, so I'm kind of starting it and then lifting as I go. So I'm going to do it down here too. So it's leaving the dark, just like a little bit of the dark in between these brush strokes. And this part's a little too thick right there. I need to bring my light color up higher right here. There you go. It's so much thinner than I have it here. Okay, I'm gonna have to let that dry. Got a little happy with my green when I did a little bit too much.
It's okay.
Yeah. This is burnt umber. Just slightly going over these feathers while they're wet. That'll give them a little color. There we go. That's probably all I'm gonna do. Mostly, I might edit a little bit and kind of. There's some area right here that needs to be filled in, but since they're so blurry in the picture, you really don't have much else to work with. So this is about as good as we're gonna be able to do it. You could look up another picture of a hummingbird if you wanted to and get wings that were not as blurry. If you want a better idea of, you know, or like a little bit more focused wings, that's totally fine too. In the unbleached titanium, I'm going to go kind of in between here. There we go. All right. Let's do the same thing to these ones. Here, now these ones are fairly done. I mean, there's not a whole lot left to do with these ones, but I'm going to add a little bit of the brighter highlights to them. Just with the unbleached titanium. I'm just letting it kind of break up as I put it on. There we go. And then let's do a little bit of the yellow oxide with the unbleached titanium. There we go. Maybe a little bit of the burnt umber too. Just kind of a light brown. There we go. Pretty. I'm going to go over the top of this brown area too, just slightly, get a little bit maybe darker. Just kind of define these a little bit as well. Okay. So I'm going to hour and a half. We're almost done with the, well, we got a lot to do on him, but we're almost done with the hard part, which is the wings. So the rest of it's fairly easy. Excuse me. All right, getting a little bit of the turquoise, mixing it with this purple brown color. Use it down here where the legs meet the body. And then I'm going to mix the turquoise with that cobalt teal just a little bit and do that area where the cobalt teal is going to be in with just a slightly darker turquoise. And that'll give us a background to work with. I can show the underside of that wing right there, and then the little trailing feathers underneath here are dark. Get a little bit of the lighter. Come up right above where those dark ones come down and add a little highlight right there. And then there's a little highlight off the back right there. Okay, and get some green. This comes down to green, meets up with that turquoise. And I'm going to go ahead and use the yellow oxide with this green that I got left on my brush to fill in the rest of this hummingbird. It's fairly light through here, so I don't want to go too dark. And even the scales don't, even the dark parts of the scales don't have too much dark. There we go.
Feathers.
And then this one is much more of a green turquoise tone. So I'm going to get the brighter green here. Maybe a little bit of that turquoise and yellow. Use that as my undertone.
Just to clarify, the hummingbirds are not reptiles,
What did I say?
so they have feathers, not scales.
Did I say scales?
Yep.
Okay. Again,
So,
our brain.
to be clear, they're birds. They're not moths or reptiles or butterflies.
You do you, honey.
Okay, all right. I mean, I know that we're always saying that, paintings are our world and we can do whatever we want to. So,
All right.
in our world, hummingbirds are a cross between butterflies and reptiles.
Birds came from dinosaurs, and dinosaurs were like reptiles. So I think I'm
Yeah, but did
in the right
dinosaurs
here.
taste like chicken?
It's terrible. Don't know. I'm getting some of the cobalt turquoise here and mixing that up with this. Let's put a little bit of it on the top of the wing. So just going like 1 to 2 shades darker than what I'm seeing in the upper layers. That's what we're doing here. So that we've got nice undertone to work with when we put our highlights on. And again, if you need to paint this, you can paint this first before you do this petal here if you want, so you don't have to paint around it. It's kind of a pain. I'm gonna paint a little bit of this color just kind of in the transition between these colors. Okay. Get some of this green that's got a little bit of the unbleached titanium in it. Get some of the darker. And then this area right here has got blues. We get the Ultramarine Blue. And it's sticking out a little bit. It's got a little flare. You know, their feathers kind of pop out when they're defending sometimes. This guy's got a little cheek flare there coming out. Fancy. Okay. And then we get the smaller round here. Do my black eye. There we go. My beak. So this is a 2/0 round. And then there's almost like a straight line of black from the eye out to the beak. And it comes down in and meets up with this part that's folded down. Right in there. Oops, that part was supposed to be white. Get the white. Okay. And then we'll get that white and mix that with the black. It's kind of 50-50. And use that around the outside of the eye to kind of define it. Give it a highlight on top. A little bit brighter white. A little highlight right there on top. And a little teeny tiny one down here. Okay. This one's just got like a highlight on this side that we're seeing. Just a little one. And then the area around it is not as bright as this other one. Defining the eye, it's just kind of a lot of black, but I'm going to go a little bit lighter gray right here just so we can see where that eye is. Okay. And then use this light gray to highlight the top of the beak right here as it comes down. And I haven't done this beak yet. Let's get a little bit of brown and black, a little bit of white with it. It's pretty highlighted. Get some white here. kind of does a slight curve right here where it meets up with the body. I'm going to give this one a little bit brighter highlight too. Just a little bit, like right there. Okay. And maybe a little bit brighter highlight in the eye. There we go. All right. I'm going to mix up the burnt umber, burnt sienna. I'm going to get a little bit of this purple color from down here. Maybe a little bit of the green. Just kind of a dark blue, dark brown green color. And I'm going to kind of darken up the underside of these a little bit. Just not quite dark enough in some places. Oh, honey, I'm off camera. Because zoomed in on me. And I could use a little bit of the Cadmium Red Light too to kind of pop into there. Some of these. And this is where you could go back in and really brighten up some of these. Get some cadmium and some magenta. That'll make a really bright red. And I've got some red down here. Let's make this one more red. Maybe open it up a little bit, get some yellow. Just give it a petal that's kind of opening up off to the side there. Let's do the same thing with this one. I feel like it can use a little open petal over here, a little bit of motion. You know what? I think I'm going to just make it a full-on flower. A little bit of white because this area is so light. I can't see what I'm doing here. These ones down here just a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit less developed, or maybe bent. They're starting to die off or something. Okay. And this, just messing with these because I want to let the hummingbirds dry completely before I do the next step. So, okay, they're good. All right, so you need to pick a brush that is the size of the feathers that you want to do. So when you flatten out that brush, you can kind of see the size that the feathers will be. So those will be good for the smaller ones. The ones down here, we'll probably start with this brush and switch to this one when we get to the smaller ones. And for his, because his is smaller too. Smaller. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one round here and get the Cobalt turquoise, maybe a tiny bit of white, add a little bit of glaze just to smooth this out a little bit. I don't want it to be transparent though, so the glaze is just kind of adding a little fluid. I could add water too, either one. Okay, so I want to test it there on my palette. That looks good. So I'm going to start down here. Actually, I probably need to do the tail feathers first, but I'll do this. I've got it already loaded. So there, and then come above it and do the next ones, and then go in between. You see that? Leaving just a hint of that darker stuff peeking through. Okay, let's get the belly scales, do the same thing. These ones are smaller, so I'm just going to barely touch down. A little bit of white with this color. I'm going to go over these with the white just a little bit. It's kind of like right at the middle. My brush is not flattening out enough. There we go. Let's go and use this over here. Okay, so do an area and then kind of do a few outside that area so that it doesn't just stop abruptly, you know. Then we can do the other colors on top, but then we'll have a little bit of this color to transition between them. Can use the ultramarine blue here and some white. Do right there. And then I add this, use this color, ultramarine blue and white. Add a little bit of the burnt umber. And a little bit of the purple. So it's this color plus white. Maybe a little bit of this turquoise in it too. And I'm going to highlight my wings that are down here. So I'm going to start here and I'm just going to kind of dry brush over to add a highlight. Leave a little bit of space. I'm just kind of lightly blending that out. Okay, do the next one. Leave a little bit of that dark and blend it out. Bright right along the edge. And then blend it out. There we go. And then what we can do too is come back through with our dark purple, brown, and a little glaze. And we can come back and add a shadow right there if we need to. There we go. And then there's a little bit of a shadow kind of where these feathers come over the tail too. So make sure there's like a little dark area right there where those petals come over the top. Get some green. And let's go ahead and put in our feet here. Get some black, unbleached titanium brown, a little bit of yellow oxide. I'm going to start again with the darker color and then we'll add highlights over it. This one comes forward. Okay, and then get the unbleached titanium pretty thick, maybe a little bit of white, really thick on the brush right there. And I'm just going to use the very tip of it to just kind of lightly highlight just a few little spots on here. That's it. Okay, let's do the other one. And these ones are little bitty. They're just little claws that are kind of bent over. Like that. I'm gonna get some of the highlight a little bit. It's all about kind of just camouflage. You don't need to have it, super well defined to get it to look realistic. Just need to kind of have your highlights and shadows in the right places and your eye fills in the rest. So you don't have to do every little feather, every little thing. Here, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little highlight feather down there.
We get a question.
Okay.
Person said that when you do the water mix wipe load, are you just thinning or are you loading the brush in a certain way?
When I was just doing it,
I guess so. The question just went by a couple seconds ago.
I am getting it. Yeah, when I do the liner, the smaller details like this, I'm adding water to that paint because I need it to be thin enough to paint a thin line. If it's too thick, it won't come off my brush. It'll just stick to my brush. So I'm thinning it and then loading it at the same time. So But as I'm loading it, I'm twisting it to a point so that it comes out thin, you know, as opposed to when I'm doing the feathers, when I'm pressing it flat so that I can get a wider area to cover. I'm going to go ahead and use this since I got it right in here. Fitz is in here with us. Spencer's out there. See? I heard him. I just heard him. Oh, he's under the door, probably.
Yeah. He's got his nose pressed a bit against the bottom of the door, making noises at us.
Yeah. I thought he was in here. Okay, it's just doing a little bit of those under feathers there. Kind of have them right here. I'm gonna get the darker brown, do longer dark feathers right there, and then they kind of fade out into the lighter colors. To get that dark brown, got nice and dark right here. I'm just going to go over the top of what I've got with these. And then at the top of the head, I'm going to get the Unbleached Titanium, just mix it with this, and tap in those feathers up here. Top of the head is mostly kind of almost a straight line. You're not seeing much texture, but just a little bit down here. And just tap little dots around the beak. Those feathers are so tiny, you're not really seeing any kind of detail. Kind of behind that little white spot there. Under the eye. Leave a dark rim right up next to that light there so that it's got a good, I'm going to do it again. Get that burnt umber and make sure you got a nice dark outline underneath the highlighted lid. Okay, let's get some yellow and some of that green gold. This will be our highlight color on this guy, on our gold areas. And I'm just going to do it like this. The feathers are going to overlap this way, so I'm going to start at the bottom here. Press that brush flat. If it's not staying flat for you, you may have too much water in your brush. So I'm just going to start here. And if it's not showing up well enough, I'm going to add a little bit of white. White's opaque, so it'll make any color cover over another color better. And that's what we need here. So there we go. If you're not getting a good feather shape, you can change your brush too, you know, if you're getting too much of a pointy feathers. That's looking all right. Really press down to get the paint saturated all the way through the bristles. See that? Okay, getting there. You don't have to see every single feather. Sometimes they're all kind of clumped together and not seeing the individual feathers. So just kind of get the, every now and then make sure you've got a good solid feather in there. But the rest of them don't have to be exactly perfect, Looking good. Getting some more of that brighter yellow.
How's the painting doing?
Good.
Oh, you weren't talking about me. I'm so sorry. I thought you were looking over here for a second.
Is that looking good? Mm-hmm. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do these down here, even though they're going to be green. And I think I'm just going to glaze green over the top of these. It'll be a good undertone color. It'll give me a good undertone for my...
Which brush are you using right now?
This is the one.
The one?
The one round.
The number one round. Okay.
The one.
No, like the one from the Matrix.
No.
Okay.
Okay, getting some of this. Let's get some. Phthalo, I'm sorry. Phthalo green, yellow shade, and my Cobalt teal here. Gonna make a color very similar to cadmium, or to Phthalo green blue shade. If you have it, you could use that. And get some of this yellow to use over here in the swings. These are much smaller, so I probably need to use a smaller brush. I'm just barely touching down to get these little teeny tiny feathers here. And there's some of this above on the forehead, coming up and around, a little bit of that yellow green. A little bit on the wings there. I'm going to use the turquoise and a little bit of cadmium yellow light to make my dark emerald green for the belly right here. How you doing, honey?
I'm okay.
Good.
How are you?
Good. Getting close to being down here. Getting some.
You're not fooling
just
me?
the turquoise here. What?
Said you are not fooling me. This ain't my first rodeo.
Okay, so is that the 20-minute warning? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. At least.
Getting some light green here. Okay, getting some of that turquoise again. I'm gonna use it right around behind the eye. Just a little bit darker color right there. And then on the top of the head, there's kind of a gray color. So I'm just going to add the unbleached titanium to this turquoisey color that I've got here. And just tap that in. Get a little bit more of the unbleached titanium and go right at the very top. Actually, let me do white because it's not showing up. There we go. Cute. All right, let's use a little bit of this color, maybe a little bit of the light turquoise. So I've got some green in here and a little bit of that cobalt teal. I'm going to use it down here. Okay. Now we got some good texture on here, and we can use our glazing medium. And I'm going to use the turquoise. And depending on how much turquoise to paint or to glaze, you can get a darker or lighter version. I'm going to get a little bit of that gold or that green, that emerald green that was with the turquoise and the yellow. So just add a little bit of yellow to this color, basically. Just a little. Okay, that's good. I'm going to use this darker color to tint some of the feathers. And we've already got the green gold and everything laid down, so I'm just going to go over the top of some of these feathers. And I'll just tint the color on. Just changes the color of it, but you can still see through the feathers underneath, so we don't have to do those again. A little bit of it right here. Just do a little bit of it down here. Let's get the blue, cobalt teal. Maybe a little bit of phthalo blue, because that's got a lot of green in it. Use that right here. And then the top of that wing has actually got a little bit of yellow, so we get a little bit of the, I'm not glazing here, I'm just using the unbleached titanium with some of the yellow, Indian yellow hue to highlight the front of that wing right there. Use a little bit of the burnt orange. I still have a little bit of that turquoise and stuff in my brush. I'm going to use that down here. And these are small little things, small little edits. Let me use the blue and the turquoise to get a brighter bluish color. I'm going to use this with the glaze over the top of this right here. Try to get this a little bit brighter. in my turquoise areas there. Just brighten up that blue tone. Gonna use it on here too. I'm just tapping it on so it's kind of going on with a little bit of a texture. Okay, this guy needs to be a little bit darker under his belly here. I'm going to get a little bit of the burnt umber. Just do a little bit of darker right there and right where the legs attach. A little bit up this side slightly. Let's go ahead and kind of darken up this area here if it needs it. I feel like his face is a little bit dark. I'm gonna get a little bit of black and define my eye a little bit better. And the bottom of my beak. Get some white with the black. A little bit of a highlight right up under the beak there. A little bit of a highlight above the eye. Let's get a little bit of that turquoise blue with some white. Just going to go just above the eye with that. There we go. Kind of brighten that out and pop that eye forward. Give it more contrast. A little bit of light color back here. Now I'm just looking at my values, making sure I've got my lights in the right spot and my darks in the right spot and my dark's dark enough, my light's light enough, that kind of thing. Getting some white in that turquoise color again. I'm just going to kind of pop a little bit of that over. It's just a couple of these feathers. Okay. Go ahead and zoom it out so I can see if I got it bright enough and can see the values better if they're closer to the same size as my reference. Okay, I think we got it pretty close. So I think I'm going to highlight that wingtip just a little bit, just get a little bit of white and a little bit of glaze, and I'm just going to go over that wing. A little bit of white right there. That's better. Do you see anything I missed? Oh yeah, I need to do the little stamen coming out of the flowers. Getting the white and the yellow. They're coming out Okay, so those are the only ones I see it. Just some open flowers. Let's go and do one here. Adding a little bright yellow right here. And I don't see these. I need to kind of do some scales on here. So I'm going to get some white and the green. And just like scales, feathers. You know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. They do look like scales. They do, for sure.
Okay, there we go. Alrighty. Pretty. I like it. I feel like we could do something over here, but it's good. You could add more flowers, I think. There's all kinds of different ways you could adjust it, but I'm going to call that good and sign it. So I'm going to use my small round here. This is the 2 odd. I don't think I even used it. Didn't end up using it. Get my water. So it's important to do 2 things. Well, 3. Use a lot of water. Thin it out. Use a good round brush with the short bristles. So longer bristles are going to make it much harder. So thin, very thin with short bristles. And then hold it upright like a pen. And then just do it in small sections. Come up about 1/4 inch from the edge so that if you frame it, it doesn't cover your signature. And you can do it in like small sections, so line by line. You don't have to do the whole thing. I've done it enough that I can do it faster, but if you have trouble controlling the lines, just do each little section of your name separately and go slower, and it'll work out just fine. There we go. Oh, he's so cute. Love it. I don't want to mess with these while you're doing that. I'm going to add some yellow to that. I think I see some yellows in there that I don't see. Super chat.
Super chat.
Yay.
Yes. So I'm partially prepared. Please hold.
Burnt sienna and yellow oxide here with a little bit of white. Go.
Okay, so we had 3 super chatters today.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
The first one was from Judith, and she says, "Your lessons have been such a blessing in my life during COVID. You and Mark are a gift to so many. Thank you."
Oh, make me cry.
Thank you, Judith. The next one is from Christina. She says, "Love you guys. I'm a patron from Chile, but this is for Stickman Comes Back."
Oh.
This is amazing, like always. Go Patreon over Netflix. LOL.
Oh, it's awesome. Thank you.
And then we had one from Carol, but there was no special message from Carol. But thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you, guys.
And Christina and Judith.
Awesome. Y'all are too sweet. All right, I'm gonna get a little. I noticed a little cheeky here. He's got a little yellow on his cheeky, so I'm gonna get a little bit of this yellow.
And it is definitely good to be back on Saturdays.
It is.
We have, a lot of people that make it to both Tuesdays and Saturdays, but there's a group of people that can only make it Saturdays because of the time difference. And
Right.
it's great to see some
happy to-
old friends that,
Couldn't make it because of
yeah.
the time difference. Yeah, because it
separated.
was in the middle of the night or whenever.
right, all Saturday. And, because they're not that dedicated. I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
They were real fans. They
Yeah.
would be up at 2 a.m. watching.
exactly. But I mean,
And when they had work the next day.
right. I mean, the excuses are long. I understand, but we still like them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But anyways, no, it's great.
I want to make this guy come to a point a little bit too. I'm making very small edits here, but we're at 2.5. Wow.
And this is something that you talk about all the time. When you get finished with the painting, you usually stop and look at it and, look at it over a period of days and
Right.
make small changes.
Right. When I'm doing it live, it's a much,
Right.
different situation because I'm trying to catch all these little things, but, you can't always catch it while you're painting it in one session. I don't normally sit down and paint in one session if I'm just doing studio time by myself, I'll stop, take breaks, look at it, go get something to eat, come back, work on it some more, that kind of thing. And that's a much more kind of normal, natural way of progressing through a painting. And I think it helps you see things a little bit better to take frequent breaks, every 15, 20 minutes or so, to reset your brain and so you don't get so tunnel focused on, what's, I have the benefit of looking at my camera screen and I watch myself paint a lot because it shrinks my vision. It expands it so that I am not just looking at this little bit right here. I can see the whole thing. It's weird. It's the way your eyes focus, but when you're working on a painting, your eyes are only focusing on this part of it. You're not seeing the whole. And so when I look at it on the screen, or if you step back and look at it while you're working on it, you can see other things that you might have missed. Things like the values and different things will pop out a little bit better for you. So just kind of adding a little bit of brown above the eye right here. Just very small, like I said, like Marco said, just small little things that make it better. All right, there we go. Let's stop there. And we will see our patrons, the $5 level patrons, tomorrow. We're going to be painting again and painting the sunflowers and the windowsill. I think it'll be fun. And like I said, I'll be working on the traceable for this tonight and hopefully have that up for you tonight for the patrons who pay for those. For the $2 level, and what
And above,
yeah, and
everybody
yeah.
gets them at
Right.
That's Patreon.
Yes, yep.
And the link to Patreon is down below the video.
It is patreon.com/Angela Fine Art,
Yeah.
and or you can just search for Angela Anderson, Google it, Angela Anderson patron.
Yeah.
It'll come up.
Everybody's doing it. All the cool kids.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day, weekend, whatever. And we'll see our patrons tomorrow and the rest of you next Tuesday. Thanks for watching. Bye.